Come on.
Brothers, my brethren, sisters, family, some personal news. Just finished marinating some lamb leg steaks, fresh off an afternoon paddleboard, really living the Southern California lifestyle. But first off, before we get into what we're here to talk about today, we've gotten countless DMs about what happened to Colin last week. And is it in fact true that he is too corporate for Builders Build? And we want to go right to the source. James, can you explain what happened to Colin last week and why he wasn't on our last episode?
I mean, candidly, sometimes a star gets so bright. It gets so bright that it sort of shines too bright and it explodes. And that's what happened to Colin. Colin was transported to Austin for South by and was invited to speak on a stage. And when that happened, he sort of made the decision, I guess his team, mostly his manager, his agent, his lawyer, they all made the decision that he probably was above the pay grade for the Builders Build pod, I think, right? Or Colin,
so are you saying that his star became a supernova?
A supernova that sort of encompassed all the other stars and planets around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is it technically a supernova? Or no? Never mind.
It's a red giant, right? Or a gas giant?
Yeah. Gas giant. Yeah.
Look, not everyone here minored in astronomy on the pod, but maybe some of us did. All right, now we're back. Builders Build, episode 5, and we are doing. It's a follow up to our buying digital assets online. This is the DAP pod, or digital assets post purchase pod, where we're going to roll into, if you have an asset, whether it's something that you bought or something that you built, what are the growth levers to take it on? So this is great for people who have purchased a digital asset online, or if you just have a business that you've just started and you're at step 1, or if you're in an existing business now and want to evaluate it. We're going to talk through, like in brief, a lot of growth levers, monetization levers, and long-term goals for working with your business or kind of any kind of digital asset online. So excited to go super, super deep into that. There might be a astronomy extended happy hour break later on where we discuss, favorite constellations, Galileo, someone who's had a positive impact on all of our lives.
Just so I just want to completely squash the rumors about me going too corporate. If you are not currently watching and just listening, I came back in the business hoodie just to make sure everybody knows what time it is.
Business hoodie is on. This is the line. Did he hang up the business hoodie for good? Did he go, suit or suit and shorts like the Tom Brown? We had to see where it was. But look, the business hoodie is back. It's irrevocable. I'm going to put down our Builders Build gavel and say, Landforce didn't go too corporate. Landforce is still here.
Landforce is still here. Boom.
Let's go.
All right. So digital assets post-purchase. Quick recap, James. What exactly are digital assets, and what are we considering this kind of asset class? And then let's dive in.
I think it's sort of a broad, vague concept, but I think for us, what we spoke about are sort of websites, social channels, newsletters. I think we're start bridging into the Web3 space a little bit, but we won't dive too much into that here today or the most recent one, because that's just its own deep dive pod. But sort of what are these sort of micro, and they can be massive, but starting micro businesses that only exist online. I think that's the real key thing here, right? Is that they're digitally native. That's actually probably a better way to put it, as opposed to only online, digitally native. So websites, social channels, newsletters. Anything else, you guys? Am I missing something?
Well, I think as I look at the outline of kind of what we have for the pod today, this is really focused around the website. I think maybe we hit it from that angle, where we say, hey, if you have purchased a website, or you have been growing a website and want to monetize it, or you have a website and it is monetized and you want to get it better, this is about what are the things you can build around in a web presence to expand it. Is that fair?
I think so. I think that's... It makes sense. I mean, considering I think I wrote this outline, it probably is just about websites mostly.
Well, I hope it makes sense, and I hope it makes sense too.
But this is something I think we've talked about in previous pods. We all, and maybe this is actually worth a little bit of an intro on something I see kind of thrown out there: the encouragement to just write a lot online and just say, hey, let's put out 1,000 words a week, 10,000 words a week, and just put things out there into the universe, especially if you're already on Twitter or on these social networks, creating a website around that. So you can get organic traffic, you can get results coming in off Google. Is any of those things is something to amount to an asset that you could put through this system. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I want to emphasize too, just on the whole topic in general. The premise here is cash flowing, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of maybe we won't label them digital assets for the sake of this conversation, but there are a lot of things that you can buy on the internet and hold and presumably have value, but we're really talking about ones that are making money, that are cash flowing.
And this is about making cash or making or scaling traffic, and that leads to making cash, right? So either you're putting in things like affiliate links or ads or something like that that's going to actually monetize, or you're getting subscribers or traffic that you're planning to use to sell something tangential. So maybe let's kick in. Maybe let's just talk about, if you have whatever your website is, whatever your kind of digital property is, if we want to start evaluating it and look at what are the growth levers, what is it going to use to take it to the next level from where you inherited it or where you've built it to, what do we have? It looks like the first one on the list is SEO. I don't know if someone wants to jump in there.
Yeah, I've got some super top of mind for this. I've been throwing screenshots of graphs into the group chat with you guys like all week and getting no responses at all. So I'll take this chance to talk about it even more. So I think I've probably talked a couple of times about CardValue, this little eBay search app that I made a year ago now, right? So I guess the conversation here and the breakthrough here is around long tail, and I'm not sure if programmatic really applies here, but long tail and like more or less automated SEO. So let me give a brief overview. So CardValue.io is this little tiny web app that you search for, and it shows you recently completed listings for the trading card that you search for. So my use case was basketball cards. It could be a Pokemon card, and honestly, it could be anything on eBay, right? So I searched for Luka Doncic Prism rookie, boom, and it shows me recently completed ones. The monetization that I have on that is now, okay, you click on one, you go to eBay, and I'm getting a commission on anything that you buy on eBay for the next 24 hours. Great. So I had that up for like a year, pretty much an afterthought. It's made between like $300 and $1,000 a month since it's been up for like just over a year now. But 2 weeks ago, I had my developer go and take every search that is made, every search term that is typed in, now creates a page on the site when you search it that can then be indexed by Google. Okay. So this is, the site is very small right now, but so in 2 weeks, 1,300 searches have been performed. That means 1,300 pages have been created. 35 of them have been indexed by Google. Okay. And all of this is happening completely. It's just happening, right? More and more content on the internet, and they're all super long tail terms, right? I'm never going to rank for Luka Doncic rookie card, but like 2018, 2019, Luka Prism rookie, blah, 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 the super long string, we're in the game. And that traffic is bringing in people. They're clicking on eBay. They're buying stuff on eBay, and it is working. That's the end of the rant, but long tail programmatic.
And so that's something where you took, just to kind of clarify on this. So basically you had a site where people wasn't getting a ton of organic search traffic, was getting traffic from a number of kind of referral places. And then once it had started getting that traffic, you took basically every single term someone was searching for and had a developer manually spin up a page for those results. Is that something that someone could automate and say, hey, it's going to auto-generate a page for all that? I assume that's how some of these kind of more,
that's
SEO
what
savvy content sites work.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I wonder what a good example of that is on a bigger site. But it's, so when you search, you're shown a list of these results, and all we did is make it so instead of you seeing that on the homepage, you're now seeing it on this URL.
And then once you get the URL, that then is kind of sitting there inside the internet being indexed and whatnot.
Exactly. And it may or may not be indexed. And I think the long tail SEO, super long tail, shout out Chris Anderson, king of long tail, from our past. But I also have a friend who sells auto parts online, and his long tail is bananas. This is like 1987 Chevy small block, intake manifold, that kind of stuff. There's so much money to be made in long tail, and I think that, so getting back to something tangible here, anything that you could buy and grow or just buy outright. Getting down into those weeds of less competitive keywords that have smaller traffic that you can dominate with little or in this case no effort can be super super rewarding.
And so so an example of a tool for this, tool that I think all of us use is called Ahrefs, Ahrefs. And so it's something where you can go in and you can monitor an existing website and how it changes over time. Really, when you're looking at something like this, you can just go to what's called the Site Explorer and type in the domain of the website. And then you can actually see what terms it ranks for and where it is in that rankings, as well as kind of backlinks and other things. But since you can type in almost any website, what's interesting is view, buy a dog frisbee website, for example, and you want to look at other dog frisbee websites and see what terms they're ranking for. You can kind of go and actually input that website, look at where they're at. And then whenever you click a term, it shows you similar terms and search volume. And so when we talk about that, when we say term, that's something someone's searching for. When Colin mentions long tail, it means instead of searching for 1 or 2 word terms in Google, you're searching for 4 or 5 word terms in Google, like basically an extended phrase versus a short phrase. And then a tool like this will give you volume. So it'll give you something like, hey, there's 100 people searching for this a month, roughly, or 300 or 500. And it'll also give you its difficulty and say, hey, this is an easy term to get on the first page for. Not many people are fighting. Or, hey, this is a hard term. Good luck. And that's kind of really helpful when you're making an SEO plan. You can then judge, okay, is this term likely someone who's going to be interested in what I'm doing? How hard is it to get? And then how much volume is it? And helps you prioritize what content to make on your site.
Breaking it down.
Yeah, it was like I was going to say, what a really a good detailed explanation of it. I think I'm not it's funny. Colin actually does a lot of preaching about SEO. It's something I see you talk about a lot, Colin. And I think it is the sort of really overlooked sort of tactic in most people's, tool belt, so to speak. And I think it's because it's a slower burn, right? It's not like that quick hit. I mean, I know that I'm really impatient. And so when I was younger, and even most of my life, I've done mostly paid ad stuff or social stuff where you can see results immediately. And with the SEO, one thing I do like about long tail keywords, right? So keywords that are easier to rank and are normally, it's funny because I was just looking at the actual definition of long tail, and it has to do with an actual chart and a distribution and the tail of the chart and how much is searched for or used in products, and the tail is the less used stuff on the far end of the chart. Anyway, you're much more likely to see quick results going after long tail keywords than after these sort of shorter, super buyer intensive keywords. So I would never try and rank for digital online pharmacy. Right? As a random example, it would probably take you, I bet people spend, or gambling affiliate sites, right? I bet people spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a month.
Right.
I'm not even kidding, trying to rank for online poker. Just the term online poker, because if you can be number 1 for online poker, I'm sure you're making tens of millions of dollars a month, which is an obscene thing to think about, but it's probably true. So looking for what is the best, trying to rank for a search term, what is the best online poker casino that takes ETH from a MetaMask wallet, right? That'd be the long tail keyword there that you might have more of a chance ranking.
With the pharmacy example, I think the medication and dose. So not just the Adderall XR 20 milligram capsule, right? like that, maybe not Adderall, but I bet in that example, there's a lot of those you just go grab. And I think something that's key here is you can't dump energy into these long tail pages because they are very small volume. You need to have an approach that you can just throw out 100 of these and see what starts picking up, and then make decisions about what to dive into and put more energy into.
And a really common one to do that attaching on is regions. It also makes a lot of sense if you have an agency or a small business. For instance, I'm actually in the process of redoing this right now for our this product development agency that I own a chunk of in Austin. But we're literally saying, hey, we rank for a bunch of these interesting product development terms, but they're all generic. And we're realizing that most of our business is happening locally in Texas. And so it's all right, we just need to optimize for people searching for rapid prototyping help in Austin versus rapid prototyping help overall. And while we wanted that traffic, and it was great to grow our subscriber list, the conversion to clients is so much larger when they're local. And so there's things like that to look at as well. And that I think is really relevant. And then for anyone who's building their presence online, it's worth just doing, just to give you a breakdown, some basic tasks. If you have a personal website, and again, this is fresh in my mind because I'm updating a personal blog right now. It's take the time to fill out a full title of what you're working with, to fill out the meta description of the page of what you're working with, to ensure the terms you're looking to do are reflected inside the page and inside the title. It's pretty easy once you break it down, but it's just remembering to do that stuff. People will start writing online, but then not do the basics to optimize. And that's all the kind of stuff that gives you a lot of beneficial value later. And there's guides on all of these. What's great about all of these services like Ahrefs, I forget what the other really popular one is, SEMrush, I think. Yeah, is they have just super extensive blogs about every topic under the sun related to SEO. None of this is new. It's all straightforward. Everyone's doing the same stuff. It's not like there's no crazy tips or tricks that are going to be really helpful. It's just doing the work. And so you can really dig in there and use the assets that they give you to succeed. It's purely just a matter of putting in the work.
Yeah.
On
and
this,
I think,
real quick.
Sorry, go for it.
No, real quick before we move on, I think that one of the biggest, I know we kind of are past like buying said asset, but one of the biggest things that I would look for is established organic SEO. And that's less about the long tail, but there are sites and domains that you can buy with authority that you can't just go buy, I guess, unless it is that particular one. I was looking a while ago at a model car site. This is a 25-year-old domain. Like, you go dominate in any keyword that you want to in that space. And again, outside of like that particular site, that's not something you can just go buy overnight. To me, like, organic SEO is a huge indicator on anything like this.
Yeah, and I think to sum this up, I think, and it'll be a good transition, is that, and I think we'll definitely do a pod that's a deep dive into SEO, and we'll bring someone, because I think all three of us are sort of I'm a mediocre SEO. I've ranked a ton of stuff, but I'm not like this is not what I do for a living, just SEO. It's interesting to get like someone who really just
same.
Sorry,
same here.
But Oren's a god level SEO.
Not for
but what I was going to say is that, like, just to sum it up before we transition, is that SEO is really, when it comes down to it, there's all these different strategies and different ways to do it. But when it comes down to it, it's two things. It's link building and it's content, right? And so those are the two things that are important for SEO. And so in another pod, we'll go deep into those. But as we talked about, the SEO stuff is a little bit slower of a grind, longer of a grind, and more difficult. And so when we look at sort of what are the growth levers in terms of an asset post-purchase, but if some of the quicker ones are paid ads, right? And so I know all of us have some experience in that space as well. And the problem, the paid ads are great because you can get immediate results, but it also means that you're spending money, right? As opposed to doing something for free. And so that's when you can find the right fire to pour gasoline on, it's beautiful. But when
so how would you test
testing
that right away?
Scary.
So if I'm someone who comes into a new website and I say, hey, I'm selling a widget or I'm selling a service or whatever it is, and I want to test running some ads, where would you start?
I mean, the one thing I would say is the first thing that I would think about is if you have ads on your site, if your monetization of your website is through ads like Google AdSense or something like that, or Amazon Associates, I would just stay as far away from paid ads as possible. In fact, I would push everyone that is interested in affiliate commissions, like running paid traffic to affiliate offers. If you're great at it, can be really profitable, but is really, really, really tough. And I would say for most people, I would just immediately throw that option out the door. For those who are great at it, I know people that make phenomenal livings in that world. That's how I cut my teeth in this industry. But if you're not, it's a scary, scary world. So I would say that the way to break it down is there is paid search, which is really fantastic because there's real intent behind it. You get to literally place an ad in front of someone that has asked a question looking for something, i.e. meaning someone says, where can I eat? What's a good Chinese restaurant in West Hollywood? You can be a Chinese food restaurant in West Hollywood and place an ad directly in front of this person's face. And so there's a real buyer intent or commercial intent, search intent that is there. And so probably has a pretty high conversion, but you probably pay more per click. And then the next section will probably be paid social. And so that's more disruptive content, right? So you want to be getting someone to stop what they're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter and get them to go into an ad. And then there's display advertising. And that's when you're on a website and you see like a banner and that programmatic display we talk about a lot. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm sort of missing. I'm sure there's a ton of others, but those are sort of the main buckets I would think about are display, paid search, and paid social. I mean, there's for sure others, but you get pop unders, you could have PPV, so pay-per-view, but that's the three buckets I would think of. What are your guys' thoughts? Anything I'm missing there maybe?
I got a free game alert on this. So obviously the keywords with buy intent, like you just mentioned, James. So like literally like best or buy frisbee online, right? Rather than frisbee, much more valuable. But I just also want to throw in the mix here, and this is something that I have a little bit of experience with very recently with my wife's business. with Glowless is my wife's business. So obviously buy intent keywords are huge, but something I'm seeing there is like solution oriented keywords. So this is a patch for people that experience a problem when they drink, right? And so you have people searching about, in this case, so Asian glow, people looking for Asian glow, not a great converter. Okay. You have people looking for Asian glow cure or stop Asian glow or things in this realm, which are really like, those are not buy intent, but they are solution oriented. And so presenting them with a solution, she's seeing like really good conversion rates around that as well, which I have less experience with that kind of play on the keywords, I guess. That's a new one for me. So free game alert. Let's go.
Also, to go with that is that I think that a lot of people end up bidding on. So you can be bidding on. I'm drawing a real blank here. I apologize. But to sum up that, first of all, the paid traffic is going to be good for if you own the back end product, right? If there's enough margin for you to make money on paying for traffic to go to that. But people will bid on. I can't remember the name of it, but like Glowless, for example, people will bid on just on Glowless. Right, on the term Glowless. So you also want to be searching, you want to be bidding on the search term for the name of the business, right? And then people will be bidding on, is Glowless a scam, right? And so competitors will bid on those terms, right? And so you end up bidding against your competitors, right? And so then you want to think about how, what does the ad actually say when someone searches Glowless is Glowless a scam, right? And then if Glowless is bidding on that, it's what page are they going to after they click through to that, right? But it's just there's a ton of it's not called trademark, but there's ways that you can make it so that you can't actually have. Is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's also yeah. You can enforce things on your particular name if they use it, but it's like whack-a-mole, right? Yeah, you're just gonna keep trying and see if you can get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Something else worth mentioning when you first hop into these too, if you say you do want to run ads, is you have to basically define what someone is worth to you. What is a conversion worth to you? And this goes into average transaction value and then lifetime customer value. So ATV and LCV. For like better terms, but basically, so your average conversion is just what someone averagely buys on your site when you take it over. So if you're selling a dog frisbee and people usually buy one, you're getting $14 per. Then you're saying, okay, cool, this sale is worth $14 to me. But then you actually subtract things like your margin and your cost and say, okay, what's my profit on this? And then that's where you want to be trying to create a sale in if you're going for just your average transaction. But the better metric to look at is how much are they worth over time. If you're selling something and no one ever comes back, then it may not be worth as much. But if that's what you're trying to change with your website, and you're saying, hey, I'm actually trying to make it so these people buy from us 2 or 3 or 4 times, that becomes a metric that you can then use when you determine how much you want to spend on ads. And if you have a robust built-out business, you know exactly. You say, hey, over the course of a year, we expect people to buy 3 times. The average transaction value is $60. It's worth $180 to us, 40% gross profit or whatever it is. And now we're able to say, hey, everyone's worth $73 to us. We have that much to spend. Those are the kind of metrics you should look for before running ads. And you can look at platforms that work accordingly. And to give kind of a quick stack rank of that, like Facebook, Instagram is all over the place in terms of where you can get someone to convert for, and it fluctuates really massively kind of in recent days, but it's kind of the most expensive. Google is sort of like the second most expensive in terms of what those clicks cost, unless you're like really deep in B2B stuff, and then it's probably more. And then TikTok is by far the cheapest. Then you have display networks, which is just running ads on various websites that you pay for at certain cost levels. And those you really have to be diving into the data on a site by site or buy basis to understand what that really looks like. And then one I think is really underrated is YouTube, where it's a decent cost per, but you can see really heavy, you can get like exact search terms and you can get search intent. And search intent is basically like, it knows what people are looking for, whether they're searching for it or not. There's a lot of those kind of really interesting things that you can do to choose where your ad suggestions are. Any other tips on getting started or evaluating, getting ads inside of a business?
Or I know you've been diving in. Well, I guess you haven't been diving in on TikTok ads so much as TikTok.
No, just TikTok itself.
All right,
yeah. We've run some. So basically, we've been having we've been basically doing white labeled ads, right? So we're able to advertise through somebody else for something, and it's part of a shared partner for a company I work with distribution through like a women's fashion channel, and so it's like 20% of the cost of a conversion of Facebook and Instagram. It's really, really, really good.
I've heard some people tell me recently that these that they were paying like 1/10 for the conversion cost through TikTok versus Facebook. What I think
but
is
you have to have
interesting-
good creative. That's the number one thing. Is it has to be like actual native TikTok creative. Because I keep working with these brands. We're talking to these brands who are like, we need to do this branded stuff. And it needs to look
Right.
perfect. And I'm just like, you really just, can we just use this user generated content that is like, that's kind of funny, you know, like that's what works.
Nah.
You know what was
You gotta
something
do
I saw
TikTok.
people touching on recently on Twitter, which is really interesting because UGC, right? If anyone ever sees the term UGC, that's what Oren's referring to. It says user generated content. The best ads I've run in the past couple of years have almost all been UGC, right? And you used to make them platform native. So when meaning if it's a TikTok ad, it looks like it was filmed on TikTok, like a natural like post on TikTok. Same with Instagram or same with Twitter, right? But what's really interesting about this is I saw people talking about starting to see what we call ad fatigue with UGC ads, right? So because UGC is a pretty new concept, the idea that these ads would be sort of look really native. And so what happens when all of a sudden generate like sort of en masse across everyone, we become sort of desensitized to this concept of UGC. And now we start to feel like, oh, this feels fake to us. We can start recognizing UGC as totally fake. And so what becomes the next thing? And I don't know what it is, but it just clicked for me. Like there is going to reach a point. I'm sure UGC will always work. It's on some level, but we're going to see this die down a bit, right? Because it's been so hammered aggressively from advertisers.
It's always a cycle, but I don't know. I just have this hard time imagining, am I ever going to buy something from a super polished advert again versus someone who's like opinion you trust being like, I like this thing, you know, or all of them are going to play a part in this process. And I guess we'll see, but I think UGC is here to stay.
I think it's here to stay, but I think what we're seeing is you have performance marketers, which is what I always called myself. Now people are starting to say they're brand marketers again, right? And this has a lot to do with sort of with pixel.
It has a lot to do with iOS 14 putting in the tracking. So you have to be like, whoa, we have to creative that works. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do you create this? And so to be clear for everyone listening, and I think, by the way, you guys, I think we'll probably just, not even go deep into monetization on this because I think we could just stick in sort of driving traffic with this pod here. But is, performance marketers being people that specifically when they run ads, try and have a specific ad performance, i.e. I put in $1, what do I get back out of it? Versus old school Mad Men, like we're creating advertisements that connote a feeling and over time people want to buy from, right? And building brand and brand equity where people come back again and again later and later. And so with some Apple updates that happened last year with iOS 14, they started blocking Facebook's tracking pixel. I can tell you we had a hearing aid brand and they really, really started crushing our ad performance, made things much more difficult for us. So, Apple is now making it so they... Yeah, please.
Let me dive in to cut you off here. Did it crush your ad performance or did it crush your ability to instantly measure that ad performance?
So a little bit of a mix of the two. So this actually will bring us back to something that Oren spoke about earlier about spending money up front to convert later on, right? And so what I will say is that we were a single SKU. I mean, we had 3 SKUs really, but think of us as a single SKU company. I sell you one hearing aid, that's it. I solve your problem. You can never come back to me again, right? So there's no LTV, there's no lifetime value for you, right? So it was really hard for us. We have to be performance marketers because I have to be able to be profitable, we call on the front end with that product, right? And really that was kudos to my partner Peter on that and the whole teams that ran all that. And Oren mentioned something about sort of looking at margins. And one thing I think people forget about very often when they look at margins is what happens when you have increased OpEx, i.e. when you hire agencies or hire people to run those ads for you, right? So if you are selling a product that costs you $20 and you sell it for $100, you might think I can spend $80 to acquire this customer. And you would be right if you're doing every single job yourself. But what happens when you hire someone to run those ads for you? What happens when you hire an agency to run those ads for you? I mean, we were paying like $8,000, between $5,000 and $8,000 monthly base retainers plus percentage of ad spend or bonus on ROAS to run ads. We're running $7,000 of ads a day, right? Running, $200,000+ a month. So everyone has to be compensated correctly. But I can tell you that drastically changes your margins. And I think that's something people need to be cognizant of. And so another term that isn't used so often these days, but I used to hear a lot, was called self-liquidating. And i.e. what that meant was you were looking to have a front-end product that you wanted to break even on making money when you sold that product, with ads, so self-liquidating. You didn't worry about getting profitable until much later on the back end. And so for most of what I think is really interesting, and not to get too meta here, and I don't mean meta like Facebook, but what I think is really interesting is that because capital markets have been so hot and frothy, so much money has gone into these venture-backed DTC brands. So these venture-backed DTC brands can lose money acquiring customers because they know that their only mandate is growth, and they're going to raise more money again. And so as that happens, all the CPMs, cost per meal, or what you pay for every 1,000 views, or CPCs, cost per click, rise because it's a marketplace, right? And so there's not as much inventory and there's much more demand, which means that for people like us that were not venture backed, it becomes much more difficult to run ads.
They want to have businesses.
Yeah. We are trying to compete against people that are happy to lose money acquiring customers, right? Like without even necessarily, maybe on a pro forma, they know what their customers hypothetically worth in 10 or 20 years, but no one actually knows yet, right? Because the businesses haven't been around for that long yet. So anyway, that was a little bit of a rant of mine, sort of anti-venture backed,
Yeah, no, that's also, it's a super relevant point because you have to look at, there's not just what you're willing to spend, it's what you're competing against. And if you're competing against someone, look, we're inside of this, or like Colin is particularly inside of this, inside cannabis delivery. Most cannabis delivery companies say, hey, we are worth more for our size of our customer list, and they choose not to be profitable in any way, shape, and form. And to try and run a profitable business to compete with that is kind of ridiculous. And you have to really look at, okay, well, what can we achieve within the parameters of having to compete with that? How do we kind of be savvier, and how do you carve out your own niche within it? That's the example of a lot of industries. And if you want to like look at the prime example of that we all see in our lives, is it used to cost me like $9 to take an Uber across LA like 8 years ago, and you'd be like, wow, this is surprisingly cheap. And now it's like 40, and you're like, oh, and that's because it's no longer being subsidized by like the UAE, or whoever was doing in Saudi Arabia.
Well, to go with that, there's a great Dan Kennedy quote, and everyone who's listening, if you don't know, Dan Kennedy's like the OG copywriter, marketer, like way prior to Russell Brunson. Anyway, there's a great Dan Kennedy quote.
Our Lord and Savior.
Our Lord and Russell Brunson. And I do believe, I think it is the company that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. And that's really, I think, sort of at its core, really pretty true, right? Because, and to that point, this really means that you should really be understanding, let's try and pull this into post-purchase of a business. If you buy an online business, if you buy a digital asset, is understanding what a customer is worth to you, and then making that customer worth as much as possible to you by adding extra products to sell them, by charging them more.
Price. Like dive in before you buy extra products. It's just, what are you charging for the service now? Because I actually think a big opportunity when you're buying online businesses is to look at it and say, are they charging the right amount? Could this be a more premium product? If you had some better branding, you had some better packaging, you just changed one or two things, could you command a significant premium? Because that's where the alpha is. The alpha is saying they sell this thing for $26 today. But if I had a much nicer box and we had a sleeker brand, I could sell it for 80 or 800, whatever that is.
Outside of overhauling the packaging or maybe tweaking the product, also just A/B testing the price itself.
Charging more,
right?
Just charge more. Always charge. Right, always. Because then you have that room to go back to James's point of like, all right, so now if I can spend the most to acquire that customer, surely because the fact I have more margin, then why wouldn't I be able to win? Right. And that's interesting. And I dabble a lot in really high end luxury goods, especially the things I've run Facebook ads for before. And that's where it's great, where like, I don't know, I have funnels running on $12,000 products. And I genuinely don't care what the cost of customer acquisition is, because guess what? It's the margin is guaranteed more than even an acquisition is $1,000. Like, don't care. And funnels like that are like, how do you find more target audiences? Not, how do you optimize your creative,
To go with that, I'll say a recent story I had, and I don't mind talking about it a bit now because it's fully done, and I hope my old partner Peter isn't upset by this. But with the hearing aid company,
Pete.
Sorry, man. No, we should get him on sometime. He's like a monster of an operator and a great entrepreneur. But with the old hearing aid company, he was, when I first came to him, we became connected because he originally hired me as a consultant. And we did this like whole like multi-hour breakdown of like looking at like funnels and conversion rates and where we could pull these triggers and stuff. And then the very end of it, in like the last 10 minutes, it was like, we were just looking at like P&Ls. And then I was just like, man, I think you could just charge a lot more for this. I think you could just charge more money. And he literally popped up the price $100. And all of a sudden went from doing like $50,000 a month to the next month doing $250,000. Like, it was really just wild, like how it just supported like everything so much more to be able to do that. So like, that's a really tangible, completely real experience from a business we just sold. Like it's just the truth. And the really interesting thing too, and I'd like to try and find a chart to show people at some point, is the largest drop off in conversion rate is going to happen between $0 and 1 penny. So what I mean by that is getting someone to actually take their credit card out and enter it in you're going to see the largest drop in conversion rates. And as you raise the price, it's not going to be linear, that drop. Going from 0 to 1 penny,
point.
is massive. But going from 1 penny to 2 penny is not the same amount of drop off. Right, and so that's happens. Now there reaches a point where it'll cross, and it becomes not worth it to keep raising price because conversion rate will drop so much. But you want to find that beautiful cross point where the price can be raised and the conversion rate doesn't drop too much, and that's that sweet spot. That's that Goldilocks spot, if you will. Right, not too hot, not too cold, and it's tough to find. But yeah.
Pricing is something where opinions don't matter, right? Like if you have not A/B tested this, you do not know what's best. And so if you are picking up something new or picking up an old project, that's I think probably one of the first things you should do is A/B test both pricing, but a lot of things in general, CTAs on your email signups, all these things, right? Because it's just, I don't know, opinions do not matter in a lot of this stuff. And you do not know the truth unless you can test for it and find it.
I think that with paid ads, you need to, in every regard, drop your ego, and you need to just be like a whore to data, for lack of a better term, right? You need to just be very comfortable that data dictates everything, and that you could be completely wrong with whatever you think is right or wrong. And I've seen it happen 100 times. That what I thought was going to be right was completely wrong. And that often you gotta listen to sort of what's being told to you by the data and follow it from there. But I think that sort of goes deep into paid, and that's another pod we could do fully onto paid traffic. I think to sum it up, there's a couple different ways to run it, a couple different channels of paid, but the reality is it doesn't really make sense to run paid traffic unless you have enough margin and a high enough ticket or high enough cost sale, to run paid traffic to it. I don't even know if it's even worth going into the other sort of growth levers we have written down here, because I feel like those are whole, we're almost 40 minutes in. I don't know if it makes sense to talk about them. They may not fit, but we can. Social is just another one.
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, if we're hitting that, if we don't, we can save monetization for a future pod. And look, obviously, building in public right here. This is you can see the pod come together as we talk. But I think other levers which you can immediately say, hey, we want to add something on. So I'm giving the quick social intro. Like that's basically as simple as saying, like, does this website or product even have a social media presence, or does it have too much of a social media presence? And what do you want to add? And the biggest one, going back to something I mentioned before, I think that people leave on the table is YouTube, because it's just as much of a search platform as anything else. If you buy a website, you have a bunch of content on there. It's as simple as saying, what are my top performing pages? What are my top performing products? Can I put a couple simple videos online that I embed in my pages to help my conversion rate, and that also are going to be helpful when people actually search for it on YouTube, or kind of doing whether it's branded or category-based search. So that's one I do highly recommend. Like every business should be kind of engaging in video to that aspect. But then the other ones really depend particularly on what business you're in. And then anything that is consumer goods, like getting it on TikTok as fast as possible.
So real quick, I mean, on the topic of social here, something I think that is probably, James, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I just bought a website. I just bought a digital asset, happens to be a website, and I want to turn it up. Social is a great place to go, and you can start from zero, or you can run the same playbook and go buy another digital asset that happens to be a social media account. Rather than monetizing that independently, let's turn that into a traffic source for said website and crank it up. That's one of my favorite like traffic sources on this kind of stuff. I'm looking for a basketball-based Twitter account right now. If anybody has one, let me know.
I know some basketball-based Twitter accounts.
Yeah, I want to buy one though.
Well, I'll tell you, actually today on the plane, flying back from New York to LA, was started buying shout outs, because you guys know we've talked about it a couple times. I bought this dog frisbee website. And so I started buying shout outs from dog accounts on Instagram to sort of test how much traffic I could send. And not even just like to sell shout outs from the page, which by the way you could do, to your point, right? You could just monetize in that regard. Right. But test sending traffic to my dog frisbee site, right? And so the first page I bought, I think I only got, or I bought it yesterday, the shout out, I think I only got 4 clicks, wasn't worth it. The one I did today, I think was like 22. I'd have to check the analytics. But all of a sudden 22 doesn't sound so interesting. But if I can send 22 clicks a day, right? And all of a sudden, and again, with the dog frisbee site, we're talking about tiny numbers here, right? So it makes a difference. It made $16 in the past 30 days, right? Yeah,
Can we get you another use case that's like a little bit less tiny?
It's so dope. Just bring up dog food. Constantly be like, look, if you were to have a dog food,
the best part is
we're at 400%.
Look, it is the first brick of a puppy consumer goods titan, a behemoth.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? This is just brick one of what will eventually be a leviathan of puppy
another
toys.
one. I'll probably buy like another one more like the 5K range, somewhere like $100, $200 a month.
Yo, let's just do one together and build it in public. You know what I'm saying? Or just to bring Rico mode back. Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that with the next 3 months of this dog frisbee site, I'm going to make it worth like $3 or $4 grand from $400 or $500. And so and I think that the reason that I'm really interested in that is to sort of just like my whole thesis of what I try and like my whole shtick online is that like everything that you see these big value-added PE firms do and investment banks do can be applied to these micro businesses. And I don't mean just like you got to spend 100K or 50K or 30K or 10K. Like, granted, the juice might not be so worth the squeeze at $500, but that hypothetically we can figure out how to acquire these tiny things, and anyone can do this. So that's sort of where I went with this. Now, with that said, I do find myself on a plane today editing an article about how to build concrete potties for dogs outside your home. And
I love it.
And just kind of wonder how did
I can't believe that I am doing this for what is ostensibly like 3 cents an hour.
To your point about the private equity portion of this, and this is something we talked about in the initial pod about acquiring digital assets, is if you have a website, or if you have bought a website as part of an asset, you should also be buying the social media accounts that go with it. You can go on FameSwap or wherever you want to go, get your Instagram accounts, see if there's Twitter accounts for sale. There's a gray area on the legality of it, but like go buy some of those assets that go with it. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then what I find in a lot of businesses we look at and things that we look at to purchase is two things. One, if they do have social media, it might not even be listed on the site, or it certainly may not be in like all their email footers or called out in email automation. And the second thing is like, I think I don't want to like lump email in with social media because email is so powerful and important, but that is something that everyone needs to be focusing on like first thing when you put on your site. I remember Colin and I having the conversation about this when he was like, do I really have to put Klaviyo in the site right away? And I'm like, yes, you need to put it in fucking immediately, because really it's just like, are we popping up on every visitor? Have they not been popping up for the last few years? Whether you're getting 100 people a day or 10,000 people a day, it's like, if you getting those subscribers in there, and then is there an actual email sign up like on every single page? Like, and is there a call to action that's great? And like, that is number one, because then if you're trying to build your social media, you're building with email subscribers. Trying to drive sales, you're building with email subscribers. And that's something that if you look at a site and you say, they are not optimized for getting email signups, that is a massive degree of alpha. And especially if you are looking at this like a private equity firm, you're doing 10 projects and you have any number of the great email marketing folks that there are out there, especially through Twitter. Like obviously there's Chase Dumond, who's kind of become somewhat famous off of it. There's our guy Maximo, who's like a copywriter for those brands. There's tons of people who can help you with email marketing. If you have a good firm like that and you just apply that to your businesses, that's a thesis in itself that you can make tons and tons and tons and tons of money on just by saying these businesses are all missing this one thing that drives like 33% of a good business's revenue.
Yeah. I mean, I think also you can do it. No. I mean, I think that like that's the trick here really is that like all these, whether we're talking about SEO or social or any of these, is like when you first buy one of these, forget even the long-term plan of growth, right? It's just like, what are like the small missing little pieces, right, that you can sort of fix and clean up, because there's bound to be some. And I can tell you that from my experience is that anything under, I don't know, a couple $100,000, there's definitely like little mistakes, right? Like if something's making $1,000 a month, there are things where people just have not put in the effort to tweak everything to its maximum potential because they don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I saw a really interesting.
I think you're.
Please go.
You're obviously the guy on this, but I think you're really right in that like anything under six figures is going to probably have tons of low-hanging fruit on this front.
Yeah,
right?
and the thing is, it's like you find 5 things that make a 3% difference, and you made a 15% difference to revenue. And if something sells for 3 times the yearly net revenue, you just captured 45% of the value of the website, right? With those 5 things, a 3% difference. Yeah. And that's where I think that doesn't click for most people. And that's sort of magical, right? I think and if you do it at scale, whatever, you find 2 things that make a 2% difference, right? And that's 4%. And on a 3X, you're looking at 12% of the value of your purchase price, right? And if you use leverage, all of a sudden that might be 50% of the money you put up, right? So there's just so much opportunity. It's more than just one pod's worth.
You know what I'm saying? It's alpha. It's an entire season's worth of alpha, that's being brought to you on this pod. This is good. I feel like this is all valuable stuff. It's just hella serious. You know what I mean? Like this is just like
we keep getting we keep getting feedback that like. So first of all, let me rewind. People are actually listening to this now. So to all of you guys telling us that you missed the old thing, I appreciate you, but you're wrong.
Yeah, we missed the old thing too.
Never listen again. Yeah. Fuck you. Yeah.
No, we just gotta like figure out how to make this more, because I think this is more interesting and shareable, but we got to figure out how to make this more in terms of the building in public, right? Like take the feedback from people and figure out how to make it more fun because obviously people get that. I'm sure everyone listening that's been listening from the beginning can tell the three of us have less fun doing this version of the pod than the old version of the pod, right? It'd be pretty easy.
Yeah, the alpha's there. That's why I think the dog frisbee is critical to the success of the pod.
Yeah,
it's just because like
true.
it really
That's
is one
fair.
of those things that we can all rally around as a cornerstone.
That's true.
Simple stuff.
I don't know. There's probably more laughing with the old version, but
there's no fun in alpha, brothers. You know what I'm saying? There's just getting to these stacks. You know what I mean? Like $100 million offers. You know what I mean? This is purple book territory now. I mean,
I'm on
no jokes
purple
here.
book. I'm on Swapped right now.
Hormozy making jokes on TikTok. It's just straight business. You know?
I'm on Swapped right now, making offers on Twitter accounts right now.
Hit it,
dude.
I
don't think you probably shouldn't say that for legal purposes, just because there is a gray area on the old terms of service. But so, Colin meant,
brother, I've been selling weed for way too long to be worried about a Twitter account.
You're also banned from U.S. Bank, and as your brother, I must look out for your best interests. Yeah.
You know what I will say to go along with that is you guys know this, and for all you listeners who don't know this, I just flew 3,000 miles to go write a 6-figure check to someone that, by the way, I didn't know, and kudos to him. He listens to this pod. I know he does. And I know he does.
Old one, new one. Which one do you like better?
Yeah. Cut James another check, brother.
And I thought he was 18, 19 when I flew out there. Found out when in that hotel room, homeboy was 17
14.
years old. So no, 17 years old though, right?
Man.
17 years old.
Go listen to this pod.
1.3 million
follower. Pod, bro. Go live your lives. You know what I mean?
Social media like network, right? So a bunch of Instagram accounts, a couple of TikToks, a YouTube account. Shout out Shane. I'll say your name. Shout out Shane. Kudos.
You're meeting
to
a 17-year-old in a hotel room, brother.
I was gonna say, Colin might not be the one that needs protecting from a legality perspective. He's doing it to sell him some digital assets. You know,
he brought a lawyer with him who was an adult. But anyway, he's the man. But my point is,
that's the point. It doesn't matter what the age is, what the background is.
I won't even like go into the full details because like a bunch of NDAs and stuff around it. But think way bigger than me talking about dog frisbee sites. I'm talking about like, you know, that those accounts are going to be used for something. Cat food websites, dog
kitty litter
websites. You know?
Tam is just
goldfish supplements.
Point is, they're going to go towards something much bigger as well, right? They're going to be part of something much bigger as well. So there's a just infinite opportunity here.
When we PE Banfield. You know what I'm saying? Then anyone know dog jokes?
No, I was like, I don't know.
It's almost as good as men's warehouse.
Bill from Twitter from that Twitter group that we're in, James. He has a big pet food brand.
I know he does. He's a G-man.
Yeah, it was all e-com based until like I think a couple months ago he went into wholesale and it is booming.
Wholesale in that industry is absolutely smashing uncontrollably.
Bro, what's the LTV on a Rottweiler?
Like, hey, you have to eat this food or your dog's gonna like diarrhea multiple fucking times. And so you're like, I'm gonna eat this food. You know, like
Bill's the man actually. When I'd started Common Commerce and we bought Blue Angels, and we were like trying to like look at buying up a bunch of e-com brands. I got on the phone with Bill because Bill owns like a cool holdco that owns like 5 or 6 DTC brands. One of them being that
cool holdco versus uncool holdco. Is that just like a branding thing?
I think it's cool. Actually, I don't even think it's cool. I don't think it's like cool. Like I think it's cool because it's like just a bunch of
you got these laundromats.
You want to get Bill on here?
Let's get Bill on the pod. Let's get Bill on the pod.
Bill's got a pod with Girdley, no? Doesn't he have acquired anon?
Oh, like undercover acquisitions or acquired anonymous.
This is the problem: is too many pods.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
that's really.
That's what my wife tells me every Sunday when we're sitting down to record this. She's like, "There's too many pods out there."
Kelsey, if this could be us live on TikTok, just selling products off the live sales, I would prefer that too. But that's not where we're at.
Real quick,
if you were listening to this pod, then you might know we could be having this conversation heart to heart. Right?
Can we talk about the joke I made to my wife after she posted how proud of me she was about the South by Southwest talk? And she told me when we got done with it was a 9 out of 10. And I was like,
which coming from Kelsey is like saying that, Colin's an astronaut essentially. Yeah.
So I plugged the pod, Builders Build, available on Spotify and iTunes.
You did?
Yeah. No. To my wife, who said you did
I thought you meant I thought you were on stage.
No. I mean,
I was so pumped.
I'm not saying I didn't.
So hyped.
No, my wife, I get done and she was like, that was really good. You did a really good job. And I was like, thanks. I have a podcast. You should check it out. And, she said, listens. Bye. Yeah, call me later. Like, I'm going back to the hotel.
Listen, dude. She'll never ever listen. But no, I would like to get I'm also now we're just spiraling a little bit, but like it is Acquisitions Anonymous. I would love to get Girdley on here too because he's the king of chilies,
I like Girdley.
Right? And he's just crushing Twitter right now.
Yeah, look, if we want to do a circuit of white men interviewing other white men who also have podcasts about business, then like that's the layup. You know, what I mean, it's just the way this goes.
God, I wish it wasn't. I wish I just what I find is like whenever you point that out, I'm like, God, Oren is so right. Oren is so right. And it doesn't change the fact that like I just don't have this network that's
it doesn't change the fact that we're going to do it. Should be. It just is what it is. Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's just when you do it, it's just recognizing that it's painful and how wrong it is the beginning of the
Step one.
Yo, just real quick. Bill's brand is Natural Dog Company.
If you were not buying that Natural Dog Co., that grass-fed, you know what I mean, this organic food for your dog, you're probably killing your dog. So use the code TALK at
I'm on the site. I think this skin and coat supplement. I think I had this from my guy. This like his brand. I think that's crazy.
You know what I love about
hair back when I was balding.
What I love about this is that like, and kudos to Bill here because, I mean, obviously he acquired it too, right, as opposed to building it from scratch. But like, if you had showed me this, I would just be like, oh, what's this simple natural dog company? It's just such a broad, vague thing. And they're probably doing like $25, $30, $40 million a year in natural dog treats.
He's like, hell yeah, it's broad and vague. Yeah. What is this? Dog food. What do you think?
But look, they're the perfect candidate for buying digital assets. James has 40 to 50 pet-related social media accounts he's got an eye on. He can facilitate the brokerage of, with or without some underage dog owners involved at any time. Yeah.
Oh man, is that a good wrap up for this pod?
Unrelated. Yeah. What's the age of consent in Canada? Is that
God,
no? But I did find an interesting thing out. So check this out. And this is, I guess, to protect because the lawyer that was there was discussing it with us. If you're under 18, you have to, and you get over $25,000 in Canada in a single check. You have an opportunity to have like it held with like a magistrate or something. And the point is and it's to protect the kids from their parents just stealing their money. Right, like let's say you're like a child actor or something, right? And you get like $1 million. It can sit with their party.
If I still had the millions I made pre-18.
How much you taking off Kingston's
I forgive you.
money these days?
Yeah, he's got his own checking account and all that. He's about to have his own P&L when he's 9.
Review it monthly.
What's the P look like? I was just saying, what money's he bringing in, bro? It's just straight L's at that age, dude. He's bringing cash home.
No, not even, bro. Yo, we gotta keep. We have as many of the family members on payroll for 401k, self 401k purposes as possible over here on this side.
I love it. Let's say monetization.
Would you consider kids to be an asset?
Well, it depends where you're living and what.
I think we've fully gone off the rails. We could do we can do James Explains. Actually, we already had a quasi James Explains what happens to Colin. What else are we floor checking? Are we money Twitter cancel Hunger Games? Where we at?
Where we at with that? Floor checking is. I mean, I stopped checking my floor, dude.
I'm buying NFTs. I'm minting shit left and right. Yeah, but,
my NFTs did so poorly, I stopped checking the floor.
NFTs, you guys see Jake Chamstein's? Jake Chams? Do you see his project?
Yeah, you sent it, but would not see it otherwise.
I'm gonna do a thread about this, but it's super dope. Basically, he was about to drop this project that was just like a photo project. All right, username is Jake Chams, Jake CHAMS. So
he's the god guest on my previous podcast, the more popular, but
really?
less continuing.
Less continuing. Yeah. So get this, because I'm gonna do a thread about it, and I'm sure I'll plug it in a future episode. But Jake is a concert photographer. He was about to drop an NFT project that was just a photo project, like a lot of the ones you've seen. And he's at a concert. What's the band he does? Can't remember. Panic at the Disco. And he gets crushed by a forklift and almost dies. And has spent this has been I think 8-10 months since then. He spent this entire time fighting for his life and doing rehab, and then on the computer, and then developing this NFT project. He spent hours and hours and hours. He's done the entire thing. He did the smart contracts, everything. And it is now a photo-based NFT project that is super, super dope. It's got Instagram filters with augmented reality filters of the NFTs that have the original holder's name on them. It's a whole thing. It's super dope. It's obviously got a royalty component. It is not your run-of-the-mill photo NFT project.
Let's go, Jake.
Thread coming soon.
Sick crypto thread. Can't wait to retweet it. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
No worry about that.
Look, for Jake, I will. Jake's one of the nicest people I've ever talked to. I will support him.
Jake's
ad infinitum, whatever he needs.
Yeah, we're copping NFTs. I think they're 0.3.
Boom. All right.
Whatever that.
What else? Look, if you guys are looking for any specific alpha, hit us in the DMs. Jameson Camp available on retainer now. Natural dog co. Use the code builders to get nothing off your order. That's there we go. Stay rich, money Twitter.
Stay rich.